This is a fucking punk song. This next one.
Whoa.
Oh, don't swear in an acoustic show. That's right.
You ain't right? Huh? Oh shit.
Don't swear, Joey.
Fuck you then, dude.
Okay, here we go. Here's a little song I wrote. I'm just kidding.
So one of the things I've been thinking of right now is, you know, how hard it's going to be for, like, there's a contradiction in that the future is supposed to be like abundant, right? We're supposedly going to be having an AI revolution with AGI, and we're going to be having robots doing everything. And this is supposedly supposed to reduce the prices of everything lower and lower and lower, thus making everything cheaper, thus making it easier to live. However, at the same time, that would take people's jobs, and there'd be severe job insecurity. And then let's say you did get some money from the government. What could you really buy with it, even if there was cheap goods? So on and so forth. So what I want to do here is we're going to watch a clip from a great podcast called Cart Before the Horse. We have the lovely Rose, and she's going to lay down some truth. So listen to that real quick.
I know somebody who let their kid go off to college and get a dorm when he should have been staying on campus, you know, or get an apartment when he should have been staying at the campus dorms. And his little eviction has now made it so that she can't get a new place to live because his college eviction is on her credit now. So while y'all out here playing these sick games with these rental people and them having to evict you, good luck in this economy finding something else to rest your head in comfortably. You know, I just watched 3 videos today, y'all, about people saying that rent is too expensive for them to go and get another apartment. They are renting storage units.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, this girl was like, we almost got caught living in the storage unit, and it's her and her 3-year-old daughter. I'm like, how do you keep a 3-year-old quiet like that in a storage unit?
And also the people that get evicted, that stays on your credit report.
Yes.
So, and shout out to the new technology. Evictions now show up on your credit report, and you get dings. So if I own property and I'm going to rent you this house, I can look your name up and see if you had any of it. You stay on that list for a couple years. You have to earn your way off of it.
Please, 2 things. Young ladies and young gentlemen, 2 things you cannot afford to have on your record: an eviction and a repossession of your automobile. Today, you do this over. You are doomed.
Ooh, you doomed. So I've been watching videos of people and their overconsumption, them racking up credit cards. And I even remember my sister, this is a long time ago, but she got her car repossessed.
Really?
But it was just before she had kids. And I was just thinking, what if I could just see someone today, as the car bills are getting higher and higher, that people are talked into getting cars they can't afford. And then they can't make the payments. And then it gets repoed, and they have kids, and they don't have a dad in the house, right? This cascade of bad consequences that are going to happen from these decisions. And I feel like there's got to be a lot of people out there going through that shit. What you think?
I think, yeah. Robert Kiyosaki talks about this in his Rich Dad Poor Dad series. And you don't even have to really read the book to get the premise of what he's talking about. Basically, minimize your expenditures every month and increase your income.
Yeah.
And it's a simple concept, but for a large majority of the population,
they can't do it.
They cannot do it. They can't do it. It's a consumer economy. We're constantly bombarded with advertisements and marketing campaigns to get us to purchase things that we think we need, but all they really are is just wants. But most people, they can't even distinguish the difference between a need and a want. And so people get caught in this cycle of playing the credit card game, sliding. They may get ahead in a good economy with paying their bills, but there's always a bad economy right around the corner. Most people do not prepare for those times. They don't prepare for the lean times. So when those lean times come, they're thinking, well, everything is good. They're operating in an abundance mindset when things are good. But when things get bad, I mean,
think about it,
it so often.
Especially the young kids, right? They're just entering the market. They're not making that much money, but they're told, hey, you should spend $600 a month on your car note. Yep. You should buy this apartment that you can't afford. Yeah. They get talked into this stuff, and then when it blows up on them, hopefully they don't have kids at the time.
Yeah. Oh, then that's another point. Yeah, thank you. So that's another point that's worth bringing up too, is Robert Kiyosaki, he basically outlines an example of a typical American family, right? It just starts out with two people.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a car? You have moderate amount of debt, like maybe a couple $1,000s in credit card debt. That's not too much. But then you have this coupling that occurs, and then all of a sudden you have kids. When you guys were living in your 1-bed, 1-bath apartment, that was fine. But now you have kids, so you need more space. So what do? Well, you have to get a home. You have one kid, 3-bed, 2-bath is basically the standard in America. Well, okay, that works for a little bit, but then now you got medical bills. And you got the mortgage now you have to pay, and you still have your credit card bills, and you still have the car that's likely not paid off. So what do? Well, you have the kid, you have the home, and life is good, right? Well, what about when you have another kid? What if there's another medical emergency? What if the car stops working? What if something goes on with the house? An appliance dies.
Oh, maybe a water heater goes bad.
Yeah.
Then what your ass gonna do?
But a lot of people aren't thinking in this mindset. And that's what Kiyosaki is saying, is that, a lot of people, they think that they are wealthy, but their wealth is really just debt. And so if you have a house and you don't have any equity in the house, that you could consider that an asset, but his true definition of an asset is something you own, right? It's not something you owe something on. It's something that you own. If your car is paid off, you own that. If your home is paid off, you own that. That's an asset.
You're just borrowing it from the bank.
Basically. Yeah, but it's taboo to say that. A lot of Americans don't like the idea. People will say, well, it's my home. When they talk about, do they own their own home? They're like, yeah, I own my own home. But the reality is not that.
We get what they're saying, but yeah, in reality, we don't really own our homes. Everyone says don't take on a bunch of debt, but it is understood that the one large debt purchase you need is a home. That's a given.
I don't think that's necessarily true, but I think what people run into is if you are living with a family, and let's say you're living in like a single family home, like a townhome that has 3-bed, 3.5 bath, or whatever the case may be. So let's say you're paying between $2,600 to $3,600 on that home. Okay, well, you don't own that home. You're paying off somebody else's mortgage on that home. And now you have the pleasure of living in that home without having to deal with like the maintenance, right? And that's kind of like a benefit that a lot of people look to for having an apartment, is that, well, if something goes wrong, you don't have to worry about it. Somebody else does.
No, I think it's more the thing is that you don't have the money and the income to go to a bank and say, hey, I want to make this very large purchase. And so you have to rent. And like she said, I mean, people are living in storage units.
I believe it.
That is scary, dude.
Cheap.
I know.
That's what I would do.
They said it's like $150 a month.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you're not allowed to live in it. But
no, you're not allowed to live in it.
But
people will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you stop it.
But I guess another, if you're not, and this is a point that Kiyosaki makes, is if you're living in a home that you don't own or plan to own, then you're wasting your money. Because if you're not paying to own that home over time, then you're never going to have an asset. And if you don't have an asset, you're never going to be able to build wealth. And if you're not working on obtaining assets to build wealth, then you're just basically...
Because basically paying your house off is creating another bank account.
Yeah.
Because you could always draw from the equity in your home. So you're basically... Yeah, you shouldn't do it, but if you're renting, you don't have that ability.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
So, and I wanted to point out, because as an example, we grew up in a poor area. Okay, so this example,
50% of the population was living off of unemployment or food stamps. I think that number hasn't changed.
Really?
In the decade.
Still the same?
Yeah, the demographics are still the same.
But anyway, as an example, I knew a girl, she was living at home, okay? And she didn't have any children, right?
Well, how long ago was this?
This is a long time ago. It was an acquaintance at work,
All right, go ahead.
okay? But I saw them almost every day.
Okay.
So, anyway, she accidentally, suddenly gets pregnant.
Accidentally. How does that happen?
Accidentally. Who knows how it happened?
It's the Immaculate Conception.
Yes. And of course, the guy is not only dating her, but dating some other girls.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He never wanted to be a dad.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm out. Okay. So now she is a single mom living with her family, doesn't really have much going on. Okay.
Lives paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. So then she says, well, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to learn to become a lawyer. So she was taking some online classes or whatever, right?
That was
Fast
the true story?
Yeah. So fast forward a year.
She went to school to become a lawyer.
This is how I interpret it. Her kid kind of like knocked her out of her blasé way of thinking.
Okay, so
And she's like, I've got to make more money. If it's going to be me,
provide for her
yes.
kid. Okay. Well,
So if I want to
get
get stuff and I want to provide, something for my family,
yeah,
and I don't have a man around, I need to like start making money.
yeah.
So
Now, was she like a liberal type with her sentiments?
I would say probably leaned left, but non-political. Meaning she wouldn't really care what happens in politics. That's not her thing.
All right, go on.
Anyway, so fast forward a year.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't you know it? Can you believe it? Accidentally?
Ken?
Again, baby number 2.
No.
So now she has 2 babies.
Yeah, right.
The diapers, the formula, just having a regular paying job,
Yeah.
alone. Again, the second guy who impregnated her also didn't want to be a dad. So now he's out the picture. And this was not just her. This can be replicated where we're from many, many times.
Yeah.
Okay?
Unfortunately.
So I saw that then, but think about the prices back then. In that area at that time were around 200, 250K. So imagine the person in this kind of activity nowadays when homes are 400 to 600K. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, nobody
There's
can
no
afford
way
that.
out.
No, you're stuck in the. Yeah, I know. I've been there. I've been in this exact frame of mind and thinking and just wondering, like, how the hell do we ever get out of debt? Like, unless if you don't care about it, it doesn't bother you. But for people who think about this and they realize if you really want to become wealthy, if you really want to climb out of the debt trap, you kind of have to, number one, get educated. Number two, you have to exercise some financial discipline. And number three, you have to develop assets.
And number 4, do not have a child before you've settled down with a partner.
It doesn't work out that way, though.
I know it doesn't work out
People
that way, but people got to start thinking.
But this is what people think. This is what they have a plan. They're on that road, and then they take a detour. Well, we have to take out money out of the savings because it's a complicated pregnancy. So the child needs additional medical expenses for whatever reason. I mean,
and how are you gonna do that alone?
It's not easy because the prices, they constantly go up. They don't go down. Once they go up.
And you're talking about savings. If you're a single mom with 2 kids with a regular job, you don't got no savings.
Most people don't have like $2,000.
Well, especially that person.
90% of Americans don't have like $2,000 in savings.
I know, it's crazy.
It blows my mind.
All right. So that's enough of that. We're gonna go to the next clip. And hiya.
It was interesting. I got to see Bill Pulte talk at the NBA secondary this week. And one of the things he's very passionate about is manufactured homes. He believes that that's the way you build homes for low-income families, and he's right. I live in a bi-level that was built in 1974. That house probably cost $150,000 to when it was first built, and today it would go for over $1 million. So when you think about how much it would cost to build that house today, it'd be close to $500,000. That's crazy. But that's how much inflation has taken up costs. And I think for a lot of entry-level home buyers, a manufactured home is actually a really good alternative. You put down a slab, you put the house on top, everything is already done, the electric, the plumbing, whatnot, with much higher quality than you'll see on a site-built home. And, you know, you can keep the cost underneath $350,000. Even that's a lot. Because, you know, the average mortgage today is around $400,000. The average mortgage for a Ginnie Mae lender is below $2. So think about, could I build a house today for $150,000? Very difficult. You'd be better off buying a double wide.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think maybe financially literate people, they think about how to minimize their expenses, and they recognize that the biggest expense is your living expenses, the mortgage or the rent. It's like maybe 50 to 70% of your income, not discretionary, like your actual income that you make every month that has to go towards not being evicted or just towards the place.
Yeah, and a healthy rent or mortgage, they say, it should be 1/3 or less of your monthly pay.
Yeah,
so whatever you make a month, 1/3 of that's what is a sweet spot for of your rent or your mortgage. But I don't think a lot of people are there.
No.
It's probably half or more.
Yeah, I agree. I think that most people in America in particular, they spend two-thirds, if not 3/4 of their income on just where they're staying. And some of that could be predatory practices, but I also think some of it is just poor financial literacy. I mean, even if, let's say that you're renting a room, okay? The room may cost $1,100. So you have utilities, you have internet, but most people, they're not going to live within the income that they're making monthly. They're going to live beyond their means.
Nowadays, yeah.
So there's not that financial discipline. There's not a financial literacy. It hits people when they're just like, oh, I don't have money to pay my rent, or, oh, I don't have money to pay my car, or I don't have money to pay gas, because they decided that Disney and Hulu subscription was more important to me than taking care of my absolute necessities.
That's the thing, is that not only do they waste money, they waste it on things that are just so ephemeral. There's nothing there. For all the money you spent, there's nothing there that you can say, well, at least I had this thing. If you bought a movie, you could always rewatch the movie, right? If you're paying for a Netflix subscription and you don't really even use it that much, you know, it's just money going out into nowhere. I know, I
had Disney and Hulu. That's 2. I had Apple TV. I had HBO, Amazon, Disney, Hulu, Netflix, Apple TV. I canceled all those, right? Because I wasn't watching. I had a list that was like longer than I would ever, and I don't know what happened. Just being like, oh yeah, this looks like something I'd like to watch, and then I would never watch it. Ooh. And once I noticed that, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not even watching. Like, I have something to do. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go to Amazon and watch Frasier, right? Or some other show like Yellowstone. But I don't go to Netflix to watch the list, to work my way down the list. I noticed that, and I was like, this is a waste of money. So I canceled Netflix, I canceled Hulu and Disney, I canceled Apple TV after I finished watching some shows. And I saved, I think, at the end of the year, hundreds, if not...
Probably hundreds,
1,000 or so. Yeah. Just because the cost was going up. So that's the other reason why I canceled it. Well, a lot of people, are they going to do this financial gut check?
When it's desperation, they'll suddenly snap out of it. But until they reach that point, like you're saying, they're oblivious to it.
And unfortunately, that's most of America. They live in desperation mode, and that's when they make difficult financial decisions. Not before that the downturn economy comes. No, in the middle of it. But at that point, you're just kind of sliding further and further into debt because you didn't make those hard financial decisions early on. And I'll give you a very quick example. When Trump got into office in 2024, the lead up to the election, in certain areas of the country, you could see that there were houses that were going on the market. Not a lot, but in specific areas, there was one home that was put on the market. It was bought in 2023, and it was sold in late 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So in my head, I think to myself, this person is smart. They bought it pre-election in the summertime,
Mm.
and then they sold it post-election because they saw the writing on the wall, and they're just like, well, the chances of me being able to sell this property for a gain in 2025 likely lower, or 2024 likely lower. For
What'd you think
2025,
about-
likely lower?
His point that the prefab homes are pretty good construction for a basically, you know,
Yeah.
at least a little bit less than he said, like between 400 and 600K for homes. These are going between 3 and 500. I mean, 3 and 350.
The prefab homes for
Yeah.
350, I think that's too expensive.
I know, but at least it's more reasonable.
No, that's not reasonable at all. Most people, they can't even afford $300,000 homes. I mean, where we grew up, $150,000 homes it was the going price in certain neighborhoods. The nice neighborhoods were like 250. The not so nice neighborhoods were like 100 to 200.
Yeah. That's what I remember.
And
yeah.
so, you know, people could barely afford those.
Yes,
But
even
you're
then they
talking
were
about
struggling.
Prefab homes at 3 to 3. No, that's not affordable. The homes have to be price neutral, and people have to be able to purchase them at a. So some people who have money, would they buy a prefab home to save money? I've been seeing this as a trend.
I would.
Indiscriminately, but it's not everybody's doing it. It's just like some very educated people. They recognize that, you know, the best way for them to build wealth is to save how much they're spending on their mortgage or their rent. And so what they'll do is they'll downsize their living, they'll keep their income high, and that gap between what they pay for the mortgage or the rent, it's massive. So then they can actually save that money. Like if you're a lawyer or a doctor, for instance, you know, the gap in savings is significant, and then you can go get the home you want after 5 years or so.
What does it matter? I would say pocket that money. If you're spending the difference, it doesn't matter. But if you're smart and you get a cheaper home in order to save, and then you save that difference.
But how many people do you know, or would you imagine, that they have this difference in savings and they're not going to go buy that very expensive car, or they're not going to go get like all these subscriptions?
I know.
You know,
You can say to yourself, I'm going to be responsible. And then that Lucid commercial comes on
Yeah.
and it just slides into view and you're just like, yeah, I got to get me a Lucid.
Yeah, and you're out like the money you would have spent on the mortgage on the down payment for a home, that would have been like 2/4 of the cost of the home. Well, now that's your Lucid money, and now you're living out of your.
Hey, you got to stay strong. You got to have commitment.
The problem is like, and this is part and parcel the reality of living in a capitalist economy is we're a consumer nation, we're a consumer economy, and so the allure to purchase things we don't need is very strong.
Dude,
and
so
it's getting
strong.
worse because of AI. But
Yes, the AI is going to learn what convinces you, not everybody.
yeah,
It's going to start learning everything about you, and it's going to construct commercials
it's pretty.
that are going to be super hard to resist. You're going to be like, man, I need that.
Yeah, you're gonna convince yourself it's a need.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people they like we said earlier on, people just generally can't distinguish between a need and a want. And I think this is most vociferous with the fairer sex is, you know, if they believe that they need to get their hair cut or they need to have their hair done to have the look and the feel that they're looking for,
Listen,
then they're gonna spend the money on
These
it.
women are spending like $200 on a haircut.
Well, that's just for the haircut. If you add in dyeing the hair,
Ooh.
that's hundreds of dollars. And it doesn't even last that long. Like maybe a good month or two.
It's a good business. So, this
Turn that
other
off.
clip comes from Pine Creek, okay? And let me tell you something. I've been watching Pine Creek for so long. It's got to be at least 10 years. And I love his show. He's contentious. He's opinionated. He's stoic. But what I like is he just says stuff and what's on his mind, and he doesn't care what people think, and he's just got the confidence about what he thinks. And the most important point, he also has a sense of humor.
You need.
Right? You gotta have the combination where you can be real about what you think, but instead of becoming, super judgmental and now I have to cancel everyone who disagrees, then it's like, no, you don't want that attitude. So here we go. So this is him. He's making a comment on fathers and homes. When I heard it, I said, man, ain't that some truth? I like it coming from like personal experience. So here we go.
A high predictor of whether or not someone will cheat in a long-term relationship is how many previous partners they've had before.
Oh yeah,
Right?
I've
So
heard
if you
that
sleep
too.
around all
I
the
have
time-
had 0. I was a virgin until I got married at age 22.
There you go. And I believe it is the case that the people who report the highest sexual satisfaction as of 2025 are married couples in long-term relationships. Yeah. That's the people who are having the best sex right now. Women have a harder time separating emotion from sex.
Yes,
I think that's true.
You are correct, sir.
And so I think actually men do have a greater responsibility to not manipulate women into having sex.
But this is where
and here's and here's the thing: every woman would agree, of course, men should manipulate women into having sex, but manipulation includes like implying that they would be interested in a long-term relationship when they're not actually, right? Like, I love spending time with you. You're so great. It's so fun. And it's like there's even
this
some
is where
truth to that.
fatherhood comes in. This is where good fatherhood comes in, because when a woman wants sex with a man, oftentimes, not always, but she's looking for something else. She's looking for love and companionship. But if you have a good father figure in the home, that need and desire is less needed, because she has a masculine figure that's protecting her, caring for her, not in a sexual way or anything.
Okay, so listen, I agree 7%. When I first heard that, that's the first thing I said. I said, wait, the people who are having the best sex are people in long-term marriages? No. From my experience, I am a very good listener, okay? I may have poor speaking skills, but I can listen. And when I listen to guys talk about their marriages, they never say, man, I'm having the best sex I ever had.
No.
I'm having sex all the time.
These guys are nuts.
It's wonderful. My wife takes care of me. It's like unbelievable. What I hear is, I'm going to clean up around the house. I'm going to do the dishes, maybe get some other stuff done. And hopefully, maybe my wife will give me something, a little bit of something, maybe, hopefully. That's how they talk about it. So when I heard that, I was like, no, I don't believe that. If it's from a survey, it's got to be lying, right? So if they're asking a woman, hey, do you take care of your man? And she goes, yeah, of course I do. But if you could talk to the guy in private and say, hey, is she taking care of you? What's he going to say? Hell no.
That's kind of delusional. They're like, when people talk about these topics, they're talking about it mostly from their own POV. And they're like quoting these facts that don't exist. I don't believe that at all. I think initially what a woman would end up doing to
entice you.
Yeah, I was going to say trap. That's how they initially convince you to stay with them, is they use their body. And when they're doing that, they're doing it because they want to be with you. Now, over time, feelings change and situations change, circumstances change. That's normal. But I would say these guys, they sound like rubes. Like, most men are not talking about having the best sex of their lives.
No.
While being married. The best sex of their lives happens before they get married because the woman wants to be with them. And then things kind of peter out as the marriage goes on. But I think you've said this before. You sacrifice excitement for stability. And that's the benefit of being in a family unit, is it is familiar.
Yeah, the routine is good.
Yeah. People get tired of it.
I know, but
I like routine, but
yes, but as you become an adult,
men generally like routine.
Yeah,
they like the familiar. Women do not like that. It runs counter to their thinking. Yeah. Routine means boring. Boring is not exciting, and women need excitement in their lives so that they can enjoy life.
We talked about this before. Yeah, that makes sense in your late teens, early 20s. But once you're in a committed relationship, you want things to become stable.
The thing that I think matters the most is that most people, they're not able to vocalize what it is they want and what's going on in their head at different points in the relationship. So they may be missing some excitement. And they just don't know that. So they go out and get that excitement instead of communicating that with their partner. Because the excitement could still be there. I mean, it's just going to be different. There's lots of ways you could get excitement in a relationship.
And there's the thing I really agree with Pine Creek at the end there, where he said that one of the issues is not having a dad in the home. And he said, being a father in the home, you provide a level of protection, comfort, and love to your daughter, so she doesn't feel like just some guy, a player, getting here at food. The illusion of or
those things
lying to get with her.
Yeah.
She can see past that, or she doesn't fall to it as easy because she already has a stability that comes from her dad, right? Where I think that if a girl grows up, she doesn't have a dad, then she's very easily preyed upon because she.
I think you're generally, I would agree with that generally, but there's examples of like fathers being active in girls' lives, and it just doesn't take.
I would just say, what's the greater chance? I think it makes sense that it'd be more likely that a woman would make better choices and be less easily fooled with a stable, protective father in the home.
I think that's traditional thinking, but I think modern day women, even if they have all those support structures in place, they still become susceptible to being brainwashed by the meta algorithm.
Oh, that's definitely true.
And what can you do about that? I mean, if they're being inculcated into believing a certain type of life is theirs if they want it, and they kind of are willing to do certain things to get it, and part of those things they're willing to do is improve their appearance, right? Change their hair color, go work out more, go to restaurants to date more. And what ends up happening is, well, they're spending all this time doing these things, improving themselves, putting themselves out there, but are they finding the person that they're going to be with the rest of their life? And I think what I have seen more consistently within the past decade is that's not true. I think what they're finding is they don't want to date anymore. They're tired of putting on the face.
Ooh, hold on. Hold that thought. This is exactly what's on the next clip.
But my kids have the same problem you do. My kids are good looking, but they just have, like, because of social media, and it's just very tough. And they don't go to church. It's very tough to meet people.
Yeah.
I even offered both my kids. They got 30 days. I made it a game. You got 30 days to have a date, and dad's paying everything. So you can go to a nice fancy restaurant, whatever. Dad's paying, and both my kids just like,
It's tough. It's tough.
Like back in my day.
Well, I would say it's not difficult to find like short-term hookups, but I have found that makes me so utterly depressed. It's a hard.
Yeah, you want a relationship.
Yeah. The experience of having sex with someone and then within 1 minute.
What? You had sex before marriage?
It was quick. It was fine. It doesn't count. But the experience of having sex with someone and then within like a minute being like, I'm disgusted by this person. I want them out of my plate. It's like, it's soul crushing. It's like, it's bad.
Yeah. So I thought that was also a interesting comment that about the times that the kids are going through nowadays is he's basically saying, hey, I'll pay for the whole date. You just find somebody and I'll make sure y'all have a good time. I think it's a brilliant idea to encourage a certain behavior, but the fact that they were like, whatever.
Yeah, they had no interest in it.
What does that say about the future, man? It's like, look, Dad, I have an AI girlfriend. I don't have time for that.
It does kind of portend that, dating, it's experienced a switch. I mean, I remember like in the 2000s, men, all they wanted was hookups. So it's kind of flipped. There's more possibility for you to find somebody who you could have a long-term relationship with. And the culture of the country was primed and conditioned to act in a certain way. Now, because of dating apps, Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, Bagel Meets Coffee, whatever, the culture has now been primed to have hookups and ethical non-monogamy with randos who are already in relationships. And so the dynamic relationship-wise has completely shifted.
But think about the kids nowadays, right? The fact that they don't even want to, even if someone says, hey, I'll pay for the Uber, I'll pay for the date, I'll pay for the ice cream afterwards.
That's a parent who doesn't understand the dating scene today. He's putting too much emphasis on it, and so the kids are turned off by it. He's got to like say, here's my credit card, go figure it out.
That sounds dangerous enough.
Well, I think that's what he should do, because then you got to let the kids plan the events themselves and then give them the opportunity to date or not date. But I think that would be more enticing for them.
No, he's saying do whatever. Just bring the bill to me.
I don't know. The younger generation is primed these days to be on these dating apps.
Oh, yeah.
And to think that they're going to find somebody through like all these dating apps that exist. But the reality is that's really just to create positive experiences. Maybe you meet somebody. I think certain dating apps like Hinge likely have a higher success rate of matching people together. But for every success story, there's also those failures that are not discussed.
Yeah, like 90 failures, 10 successes.
Sure. I'd say most people still in America, they want to be in a relationship, but they don't know what it looks like. And so they may get into a relationship, it's toxic, it's traumatic, and they just realize, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through that again. And so the thinking is that those shared experiences get around, and then it kind of turns people off from dating. But it's waves. I think maybe at this point, they're like, well, if it's summer, they're just like, I don't want to date. But then come winter, they're just like, well, maybe I need someone to warm the bed, in the winter. It's in winter. Or, well, most babies are conceived is in winter. Every generation has these social moments where it's just...
Don't you think it's different now, though?
It is different, but every generation is different.
I know that.
When we were growing up, I mean, dating girls was, I think, I'm not going to say easier, but it was easier to find people. I think if you were just kind of like social, if you went to school, there were girls that you could talk to. Whether you dated them or not had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with perhaps your insecurities and being confident enough to ask a girl out and accepting the rejection if she says no. But I think it was definitely different then. Versus now, I think it's just too convenient. Nobody has to work for it. And so people they have one argument and they break up. They have one disagreement over ice cream, the flavor of ice cream, and they're just like, well, you're harshing my buzz or something. You're not positive enough in your choice of ice cream for me, so I'm going to just stop talking to you.
I'll find someone who'll treat me right.
Yeah, I can see these little things being amplified in such a way that it's just so insignificant. People just don't know how to have disagreements and stay in a relationship. They don't know how to get over something.
Now, I was thinking that
conflict resolution.
But this leads into the next clip is I know for me, social stuff, I'm more of an introvert anyway, but I listen to people all day long, right? I'm always watching podcasts and all kinds of stuff. So, but the thing is I can see with the kids too. It's like, well, I've got my favorite, if you're a guy, female streamer, or a girl, guy streamer, or YouTuber, or whatever, and your quote unquote interaction comes from your daily consumption of whatever material they're putting out, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is true, and I just want to play a clip here from Scott Adams. Shout out Scott Adams, poor guy. Has cancer and might not live past the summer. But he said he's going to go do some experimental treatment or something like that. I hope it goes well.
Yeah, it does too. I mean, he's been around for a while, but so how old is he?
Late 50s, early 60s, something like that.
Oh, dude, that's way too young. But I mean,
anyway, so let's wait. It might have been late 60s. I'm not sure, but let's listen to a clip from him.
What I heard yesterday when I was listening to the very long spaces is that a lot of you are listening to my show not for the content at all. but rather you like the feeling of essentially having a friend. And I didn't realize it, but apparently I'm filling a bunch of holes. For some people, I'm like a father, which I enjoy. And for other people, I'm like their friend that they get to talk to once a day, which is one of the reasons I'm here every day. So you always have at least one friend. And some of you say you're just hooked on the simultaneous sip, but I think you're more hooked on the friend part. And I heard a number of people comment that when you listen to my show, it's more like one person talking to you. And I do that intentionally. And it's the reason I do it live. Others have suggested, why don't you record the show and then just play it when it's time? And I thought to myself, that would feel so dead. Because right now I'm sort of continuously monitoring your comments. So to me, it's like a conversation. So even on my end, it's like you're talking to me, and then, obviously you're talking to each other too. But to me, it's like a real conversation.
Yeah, so I agree with him a lot there. It's unusual. We have this weird life we have nowadays in that we can listen to people as if they're talking to us and listen to music as if someone's singing to us, but they don't know us, we don't know them. But due to things being digital and everything, we can build up somewhat of a relationship with them, even though it's all one-sided. They don't know you. I do feel that way with certain things. Like, I really like Pine Creek. I like Scott Adams. I'd be really sad if they died, but it wouldn't, I understand at the same time, they're not my friend. They don't know me. But it is interesting. You do build those relationships. Same thing with like Joey Cape from Lagwagon. I've been listening to his music since middle school. And I'd be really sad if he died too. Kids nowadays, they can have a bunch of relationships that are one-sided online. And that might be something that prevents, like what you were saying, building other relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely something to what you're saying that resonates with me. We're both gamers, so we spend most of our time online gaming, and so we built a network of a community of other like-minded individuals through those games. We developed social skills for that environment, whereas that's just one social skill, one area that you have to kind of be competent in. You'll never be able to get away from having social conversations in real life and needing to know how to talk to people of varying personality types, ethnicities, religions, and generally just different demographics. And it's a skill that's being lost. And that's definitely something I've heard older generations complain about with the dating culture these days, is that they feel like people are losing the ability to have a conversation with somebody in person. I think that's true. Every technology, society tends to lose something. That something could be a social skill. I certainly have my opinions on communication and how competent, just in general, people can be with communication. Even if it's accurate or articulated correctly, most people don't comprehend it or absorb it the way it was intended.
Yeah.
With spirit and with content. And so if you have a watering down of something that is so quintessential to the fabric of society, and it's already this fragile skill, well, now it's just being watered down more. And so you have these, and that you could say in many ways that this is the reason why there's a fraying of societal norms, and why there's just this widening gap in divisions in the country between left and right, because they can't talk to each other. And why can't they talk to each other?
Because they have poor communication skills in general.
And and why do they have this?
Because they're chronically online.
It could be. If you're in the left politosphere and you're on TikTok and Instagram and you're following certain people who constantly are saying that, the other side, you should never talk to the other side, you should never engage with them, they're evil, then the people who are following you are going to believe that. and they're going to get further and further away from their ability to have conversations with people who are different than them. And honestly, it's a shame because opposites can attract, similarities can attract. What I have found is that similarities tend to be boring. If someone is exactly like you, yeah, it feels nice to have somebody who's like you, who shares common interests. But over time, you know, does that have staying power? Does that have longevity, a relationship like that? I don't think it does. Maybe it does for some people, but in my mind, I think it depends.
I think it's personality type. Like me, sure. I like disagreeing on stuff. Yeah. I don't have to. I can hear someone else's opinion and not agree with them, but still think about it.
But can they?
Yeah, it's personality types.
Yeah, I think what we're running into now is like it used to be common for us to just be able to have these conversations with people who we don't agree with, but you still respect them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen people just not even really want to engage with anybody just because of their political views. That is an indictment of where the country is going, and there's definitely implications for the birth rate. Writ large, what you find is that a society that can't talk to each other becomes more and more divisive.
We live in that time.
We're living in that time right now for sure. And there's other foreign powers are taking advantage of these divisions to further wedge society further and further away from each other.
And it's a thing too, and I agree with him, is that for me, I personally find the individual speaking into the camera or making the podcast, just talking about things that they're interested in, I like it over the produced news show, the produced official TV show, right? And it does feel more like you're just talking with a friend, or if there's like a chat, you're just communicating on a more intimate level. I do find it more appealing. I do understand why people consume that version of the media, because it is better.
It's definitely changed. I remember watching 21st Century with Mike Wallace, and he would basically it was unique to me because his reporting style was documentarian. So it was like he was reporting on a mini documentary on a particular topic, and then he would discuss it and the implications of it for now and the future. And you trusted him though. But that trust has become shattered, I think, with media, like legacy media today. It's just been shattered. And a lot of people, the concepts are now, format is like now shifting to podcasting, where you have somebody who you trust, who shares your political views, but in so doing, you're listening to only one person who has a bias that only you agree with.
Prescience.
Okay.
You have prescience. You know why? Because the next clip is exactly about that. Listen, I agree with that. When I heard that, I was like 100% true. Okay? But I will say something.
Say something.
The reason why this is so true is because the experts have destroyed their own credibility. I do agree we need experts, but when you come on the media and you lie for your party, or you lie for what the government needs at the time, what happens is you destroy any trust people have in you. So yes, the influencer online who doesn't really know anything too deep about any particular topic, you trust them because you know why? They're speaking their mind. They're saying what they think is true. They come off believable. Whereas you look at the polished, script reading news anchor and you say they're just lying for the corporation. They're just lying for their party. They're lying for whatever. But you don't believe that they have honesty.
When it comes to experts, there was a time, this would have been before the acceleration of social media and expansion of legacy media. Prior to 2008 is when I would say things were a little bit different. Now, the expert card has been overplayed. So if you have like people going on to MSNBC, for instance, and they're lawyers, and they're doctors, and they're directors, and they're typically, or they're academics, you typically have these individuals who are left-leaning anyway. And so all of their data, all of their empirical evidence, it comes from a biased opinion. And so they're not talking about things in an objective manner. They're talking about things in a very biased manner. And so both sides have done this. They've kind of shot themselves in the foot because, at least for myself, whenever I see individuals who are affiliated with MSNBC or like some easily understood to be left-leaning media, I'm very hesitant to believe everything they're saying or even a small portion of it. And I'm a little recalcitrant to give them my time because I realize, like, the left ecosphere, I think we've talked about this, there's specific professions that benefit from being associated with a certain party, right? Lawyers in particular, they benefit by and large from supporting Democrat political positions. Doctors, of course.
Biden. Recently, it just been revealed, I think it's Jake Tapper wrote a book about people had recognized that Biden was losing his cognition since 2023, and now they've released that he has cancer. So you know that the party knew that he was not healthy and he had problems, and nobody would admit that. But now that it's over, now this is the experts, right? So these are the people who told us many, many times, I've talked with Biden, he's fine. No doctor has come out and said he has cancer before.
This kind of goes into what the shared interest, doctors, lawyers, academics, directors from Hollywood. There's specific professions that benefit from towing the party line.
Yeah.
And what we could say with Biden is that there are these individuals who are going to go down with the ship. And the ship was Biden. Recently, Trump DOJ has stated that they are conducting an investigation into determining the mental capacity or the mental stability of the previous president because I guess the
Autopin thing,
because
right?
of Autopin. Yeah, I guess his political appointees were running roughshod all over him. That's the assumption, at least, and that they were doing things that they likely would not have done if you had a mentally not deteriorating president in the White House. Just going back to the point about the experts, they do serve a place in society, but it's becoming so
I'm suspicious. I get suspicious of them because they, like, for instance, and I don't want to be one-sided,
look at
Elon
Fauci.
Musk.
Fauci is a great example.
Elon Musk, right? Recently, he's moving out of the government Doge program and going back to running his companies, right?
Okay.
He was on TV, if not every week, every other week, saying, hey, I found this, we're cutting that. Now, all of a sudden, now that there's no way he's meeting his 1 trillion or 2 trillion or whatever the hell you want to say goal, where nobody says shit about it.
Well, he's not really an expert.
Mr. Two Hats?
He's got more than that.
I know, but he walked around, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But where?
He's not an expert, though. He's just...
he was an expert in that department.
He's a buffoon.
Yeah, well, yes. But what I'm saying is, I want to be fair, the right does the same shit, too. And that's an example of recently, Trump not saying anything. As far as I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard
About
Elon
what?
say, hey, I apologize. I'm not going to be able to do it, or I suck, I'm not, nothing. It's just, we've gone quiet, and I'm going to silently creep out the door, and hopefully nobody will notice. Am I listen to you, or am I listen to some, granted, more ignorant person online, but they're genuine?
But that's the way things have been trending for a while. To me, it's not surprising. I think you can also listen to people on Substack. There's also YouTube channels you can listen to people on.
What I would say is there might be a YouTube channel where they cover the news that you're interested in, right? But they don't work at any of the offices of government. Well, they don't have a PhD in anything, right? So they do have less qualification.
But there are experts, right? If you are having issues with your heart, you're not going to go to a mechanic, and vice versa for your car. So you're going to go to certain people to get certain answers for things that you're dealing with. It's just whenever we're talking about these things in a political sense, what you end up running into is like, well, you're dubious of the information they're giving out because of the platform that they're saying it on. I do this. I question their interests. Who benefits the most from being on this program, talking about this particular topic? Well, the person who's coming on the program to talk about this particular topic. They do have, even if it's a quiet agenda, they have an agenda, and they may be getting paid a speaking fee for going on and talking about certain things. You could certainly say the same about Snowden. I mean, Snowden, he was interviewed numerous times for his access to certain programs when he served in national
I'm pro
security.
Snowden. He's a hater.
No, he's a traitor. He should never have been. So anyway, yeah, but my point is that he talked about these things. And so, but is he an expert? I can tell you, I don't believe he's an expert.
Yes, he was.
No, see, this is where we disagree.
Yep.
I think he's an expert troll. He touches on 1/4 of an issue, and the 3/4 nobody tends to care about.
No,
Like,
he was in the middle of it.
There's no content.
You're on the
in the thing
far
that he's talking
perimeter. He was actually in position to see way more than you saw.
No, he's a traitor.
And he gave the American people the truth that we needed to hear.
That's what you want to believe.
And man,
that's the truth you
did
want
that,
to believe.
I wish that made a difference, but it didn't make no difference.
The real truth is that he betrayed his country. He should not have leaked documents. He should not have leaked information.
I appreciate what he did.
He put American lives in danger by his actions. He shouldn't have done it. That's my position. You think he's an expert?
Yep.
I think he's not really an expert. He has some experience that he can share. The rest is it gets swept up into the political ecosphere of either party and how they want to twist it to put forth their own narrative. So anyway, my point
It's
is like,
okay. Listen, you can be wrong. It's fine.
Any expert that goes onto a program, I think that you have to question them. Look at Joe Rogan as an example. Joe Rogan, I'd say he's more moderate, but he's kind of trending more right. And the reason being is because the left always tries to cancel him. So obviously he's going to now put himself into a position where he has perhaps some cover from the current administration and political figures that want to see him continuing to talk about the things that matter to them, which is what? Free speech, free will, not canceling people for having an opinion. And he's a comedian, so for him, free speech is very important. But he also has people that come on his show, like Neil deGrasse Tyson is a great example. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he has the credibility, he has the pedigree, he has the empirical experience to talk about specific things, specifically related to like space, astrophysics, rocketry, science. He can talk about these things and you can kind of feel generally confident that he knows what he's talking about. But he's been doing it for like decades.
That's what I like. He's just like, people go, nah, you can't have that person on. No. He says, you know what? I'm going to put on whoever I want to put on.
What they're not realizing is that this past election was a referendum on the policies and the agendas of the Democrat Party. And the independents who actually voted in the next president, the current president, they're the ones who make the decisions come election day. Not the left, not the right, and I've said this before, it's the independents. And I think that that independent group is going to continuously grow because they're going to fill in the gap between left and right because they're so tired of the volatility.
Yeah, we talked about it before. I think less likely. I think people become more radical, more in their bubbles. But we're going to go to the next clip now.
Yeah.
And this woman triggered me. Let's see what happens. Okay.
Very often in these divorces, there are two very different approaches to money. So I'm thinking of one divorce where it was the situation that I just mentioned of we were making all this money. This was a family that was making, husband worked and was making about $2 million a year. And it fluctuated because of the kind of business that he was in. But that was about what they could generally expect to bring in. And she's saying, we're getting divorced and there's like nothing for us to divide. And I don't understand how this can be. So we dug into this spending, and what we saw was that she was an extreme spender and he was super frugal with the money. He rarely went and bought himself any clothes. He didn't have any expensive hobbies, anything like that. She had very expensive hobbies. She was going and buying the most expensive clothes and living the high life with the credit card because every month he paid the bills. And she never, I think, saw a total on a credit card. And so it's those very different approaches in the current day that I see, that I notice, that are kind of mind-blowing to me.
So, oh my God, this lady. So this is just the setup. There's a second part to this. Okay. So she says there's a wife. The guy brings in $2 million. He's frugal. He doesn't really buy anything.
That's like, sounds like most men.
Yeah. She just spends crazy. Expensive jewelry, expensive clothing and all that stuff, okay?
For a relationship to work, you have to check what are your financial values. Do you share the same financial goals? What is your credit score? These are things that only started to become important over time. So go ahead.
So what I was gonna say is, I do agree. There is blame on both sides, okay? You cannot be making $2 million a year, and at the end of each year, you don't really have anything, much savings, much anything. And you know, because you're paying the credit card bills, the debit bills, you're watching the bank accounts because you're the responsible person. You see that your wife is just spending like a madman. Now, at the same time, and it's interesting what you hear what she says, but to me, this is way more the woman's fault than the guy's.
I wonder if he had been sharing with her, here's what's going on with our money. I wonder what that would have done for their relationship.
Well, in a situation like that, I always wonder to myself, like, it seems like such negligence on the part of the person who is managing the budget to not put up boundaries there. And, you know, for me, it's like if I had a spouse who was completely decoupled from our finances and spending us into poverty, essentially, like I would probably cut off their credit cards, first of all, until they agreed to, you know, become an active partner in the finances and to stick to a budget. Like I would absolutely, it feels baffling to me that anyone would spend that way and not want to know the consequences, but also that anyone would just allow that to run unchecked. And so from your perspective, like in a couple where one person is really running the finances, what do you think their responsibilities should be as far as, you know, sort of setting a household budget the way you would set a budget for a business?
I think that responsibility is huge, but I want that responsibility to be shared. I think it's so easy for couples to say, well, she's not interested in the money, she won't have the conversation, or the opposite. She won't let me know anything about the money. She handles it all and doesn't want me involved because she says I'll mess it up. And whatever excuses there are, I've heard it all.
The fact that you can,
we're gonna get kids.
I don't care. To me, it's so disrespectful to not even ask your husband, hey, I'm spending $20K on this dress. Is that fine? I'm spending $50K on a purse. Is that fine? Right?
I mean, I think that's generally the guy. This sounds like a situation where the man wanted a woman he can't afford. And
I agree. He should have checked her.
Let me preface this by saying some men, sometimes you don't know. There's degrees of spending habits that can be curbed or curtailed over time. And most men are physical. So when they see something they like, they may not understand what's beneath the hood. If you're not seeing that, it's because you don't want to see it or you're ignoring it.
It's ignoring it.
And so I wouldn't say women are going to be women. They're going to spend, this is just their natural tendency to spend money.
I know.
The man is the one who has to be the conscientious objector and say, look, this isn't going to work.
But when does it come disrespectful, man? Like to just spend as much as you want and not even think about it?
Not in this case. I think it's his fault. He should have known better. He shouldn't have gotten with her.
Listen,
if
okay.
you can't afford her, don't.
The lady on
don't
here.
chase her.
Listen, I do agree. Both parties are to blame. I would say the weight is greater on the woman's side. You say it's greater on the men.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they agree with you on this. But I was like, to me, if I was spending someone else's money, I would not say I'm spending someone else's money. I'll just do whatever I want.
It comes down to what are your values. You know, I think like a religious woman, perhaps raised in a either Catholic or Baptist upbringing, would probably ask those questions. It's not just really just women. It comes down to the personality as well. There's a couple of factors. Religion factors into it, I think, in terms of having a mental grounding on the importance of being frugal and being conservative.
The guy's making $2 million.
He's making $2 million?
$2 million a year. So this whole frugal idea, no. They have the money, but she is spending the entire amount.
Yeah, but that's his fault.
I know it's partly his fault.
No, it's not partly
Okay, anyway,
his fault.
but hold on. Let's go to the next one, and we'll have the host agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I agree nobody should. The activity in a bank account between husband and wife, they should be able to talk about it. If there's large purchases, they should discuss it with their partner.
I agree.
For a healthy relationship.
You're talking about someone who makes millions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
That's not a normal relationship.
No,
That's
no.
a man who has money, who can use his money to attract women to him, and he's attracting the certain type of woman who's going to use his money. That's his fault. If he didn't want someone doing that, then go to a church, pick a woman, they win the lottery with you, you're going to have a wife who you can improve, who you can make to look the way you want, and they're just going to ask you, is it all right if I spend money, spend like X amount of money on X, Y, or Z?
Listen, I agree. The case is probably what you said, that he's not too good looking. He purchased basically a woman outside of his range. And then she said, I'm draining your pockets. Okay, fine. And I agree with that. That's probably the case.
Listen, a woman who uses her femininity to her advantage, there's nothing wrong with that. In this case, I get the sense that he is punching above his waistline. And he punched so high above his waistline that he got hit. And he got hit by someone who's using her femininity, her intelligence, and she's recognizing what the relationship actually is. It's not based on love. It's based on lust.
Well, they said at the previous clip at the end, they were getting a divorce and she wanted half of his stuff.
There are women out there who know what they're doing. There are, and there are also some women, and there are recent examples we could point to, who they're just like, they don't have the life that they want. They don't feel as if their life ended up the way that they wanted it to. But they're not being grateful or appreciative of everything that they have and how far that they've come. And so you have these two extremes. You have some women who they focus on themselves, and so they can entice or trap a man who has some money. Okay, so for those types of women, the world is their oyster. There's other type of women who recognize it a little bit too late. And then all of a sudden they realize, well, I don't have the life that I want. And so I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna find someone who's gonna give it to me. And then they get disappointed because they try to improve themselves. And in so doing, they find guys who are willing to date them, but not willing to be with them long term. And so you have your extremes. It's nice, I think, to find someone in the middle. But to do that, you kind of have to have the wherewithal to understand, okay, the traps. Like, I don't want a woman whose sole focus is money. But I also don't want a woman whose sole focus is, like, I don't know, education and social justice movements, right? You want someone who's kind of like maybe a mix of both, and a balance, a mix of both mentalities, but balanced in such a way that they don't lean one way or the other, and they don't kind of, they can't ruin your life one way or the other. And that's hard to find. I think that's incredibly difficult to find.
You want a woman who won't ruin your life?
They exist.
Calm down.
But they're so rare. I'm talking about a woman who has like family values, born out of some conservative upbringing, but is liberal enough to understand that I don't want religion to control me. That makes them a moderate. Having those two mentalities mixed together, that is the perfect storm.
I have great news. I have great news. Zuckerberg is constructing this woman online right now. Yeah. And when she's released, you will finally be a happy man.
All right. Joey's lyrics are kind of depressing sometimes. We got to pick it up a little. This is a song off my new album that's also depressing.